Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which, as always, is for writers like you and me who use and who write on Macs and iPhones and iPads. But for this once time, it's a 58 Keys holiday special. Look, I'm on a month-long cruise, which is very nice. Oh, a bit grey out there today. It's very nice, but I rarely go away, actually, and I've never been away on holiday for more than a week in my life. So this is nice, but strange. When I became a writer, okay, and you have the form, I ticked the box that said vocation, not the one that said vacation. Yeah, all right, I've been practicing that joke. Um, Please forget you heard it then. Here's the thing though, right? This is a month. It's a month long holiday. It's a long time to be away. And I think it's got to mean that I've had to find out things in advance, and I've learned things since that could be useful for you or me whenever we go away, anywhere, for any amount of time. I mean, things like battery power on the iPhones. Look at my face. I've got history on that one. Travel adapters, that makes sense. Power things. Essentials, really, for travel. Essentials such as using your phone outside of your own country. And then also nice. Actually, I tell you what, let's do it this way. So that you can just watch any bit that sounds like it might be useful to you, we'll divide it. Yeah. So first up, you and I will do essentials, phones overseas, travel adapters, things like that. Then let's call it nice to have AirTags, that kind of thing. But then you got to let me do this. Basically, our last part is going to be where I will bow down in front of my iPad, the single best device for travelers ever. Yes, funny about the iPad. I'm on the Viking Orion cruise ship and all over the place. Musicians are using them. It's everywhere. Anyway, then, essentials. First essential is that I must have got to thank 58 Keys viewer and patron Stuart Bilverstone because he recommended Airalo to me. This app is how I was able to stride around Tokyo last week using Apple Maps and not spending more on my phone bill than on this cruise. I get a bit over twitchy here. I'm UK, using iPhone data overseas. A long time ago, I was returning a hire car in France and time was ticking. I got lost. I had to use Apple Maps for just a few minutes. So where was I and could I get back there? Fine. And it worked. It was very impressive. And this was early on in iPhone data. This is really good. Resulting phone bill, horrendous. Sometime after that, the European Union made it so that carriers couldn't do that sort of thing again. The EU made it so that as a UK citizen, I could go through France again or Germany. Well, really, it's the European Union. I could go Europe-wide and not face quite such painful charges from my home carrier. But speaking of pain, Brexit, the gift that keeps on taking. Before the UK bizarrely chose to lead the EU, phone companies there swore up and down that nothing would change just because they're allowed to raise prices. They won't do it. Everything would stay the same, they said. Would it? Bollocks. But that is where Airalo came in for me. It sells eSIMs. I don't know what you know about this. What I knew, right, was that newish iPhones can have an extra electronic SIM card as well as the physical SIM that gives your phone its number and so on, right? I knew that. I read about it. I think I may actually even have written something about it coming somewhere sometime once, but never actually used it. I never really thought about it until Stuart pointed me to this Airalo app. You get the free Airalo app. Then when you are on Wi-Fi in the country you're intending to go to, you go through the Airalo app and you buy from them a local eSIM. I did actually find this a tiny bit fiddly, but the app does step you through first installing the local eSIM and then secondly, importantly, switching off the data use from your iPhone's regular SIM. And the result was, for the period that the eSIM runs, and for the amount of data that you buy, everything your iPhone does online that isn't through Wi-Fi goes through that local eSIM. In no case is it using data through your own carrier, your home carrier. Yeah, at the moment you can't make calls through this eSIM with Airalo. I believe that may change, but certainly at present you can't. It is solely for data use. And it is hard to know how much data you're going to need. I originally spent $4.50 and bought 1 gigabyte of data that would be available to me and would time out after 7 days if I used it or not. As it happens, I then, towards the end of that, I spent another $4.50 on another gigabyte. And over about a week in different parts of Japan, I used something like 1.4, 1.5 gigabytes in total. That was mostly hours of Apple Maps use wandering around the place. General online. I think the thing is, I'm struggling to say what I use the data for, because I didn't have to think about what I was using the data for. Just use your phone the way you normally do. That's what having an Airalo local eSIM gave me. It gave me peace of mind knowing that this expensive holiday was not going to be followed by an expensive phone bill. I realize I say that to you while I'm still on the ship. No, it'll be fine. Won't it? Still on what I'd say were essentials. Pack the right cables, would you? Unlike me, the right cables and the right adapters. I did put some thought into this. I actually spent a ridiculous amount of time researching adapters, mains adapters, power adapters before the trip. And what I settled on was one adapter that would let me plug in devices when I was in Tokyo, when I will be in Alaska, and then a bit later on when I will be in Canada. And I found this, the One World adapter, and I was so smug. Except Japan uses 2 types of main plugs, it turns out, and I knew that. I was reassured that this adapter supports the by far most common one of the 2. It turned out to be the least common one in all the places that I went to up to then. But to be fair, each of those places, although most of the plugs didn't work, there would be at least one socket somewhere that did fit what this adapter could do. So I was back to feeling quite smug until I got on the ship. I did not pack a lot of plugs because I also knew I was powering USB devices. And have a look at this. The One World adapter has USB-C. It has USB sockets. That's a single USB-C one at the end, and yeah, a bunch of USB-A ones. I was sorted. But what can you do? Well, what you can do is, I found a 7-Eleven in Hokkaido that had a simple Anker USB-C adapter. Nice to have things on a trip. Your iPhone comes with a Translate app which can do this. Tap the app's camera button, point at some text somewhere, tap to take a shot, and after a moment you can see a translation of whatever that text is. Translate is free. It's on your iPhone. It works well enough, and I had somehow completely forgotten about its very existence until after I'd shown off, well, at the time I thought it was showing off. I thought it was an alternative. Now it feels a bit long-winded, but I'd found it, I'd thought of it. It might be useful to you. Oh, let me show you. Okay. I was in the Core restaurant in Tokyo, quite near Apple Ginza, and in this restaurant, there were waiting staff, but you had to order via their website. Fine. All was going well until you had to make a choice. Yeah, and not unreasonably, really. The choice was written in Japanese. Of course it would be. But no, this is a website. Take a screen grab of that website, and now you don't have a site, you have an image of the site, which is an important difference because it means iPhones now, you can select any text in any image. So you select that text, you copy it, you take it over to Safari, you go to translate.google.com, paste. I was so pleased. Either way, Google or Apple Translate, it is still a translation. I love, by the way, utterly love what Havante has said about this. Translation, he said somewhere, is like looking at the back of a tapestry. And one reason I extra love that is I presume he said it in Spanish. Anyway, also nice to have and easy enough to get are AirTags. You know what they do. You know what bad people do with them. But having an AirTag in your luggage is, well, actually, it's a relief. I was able to see where it got to, and yeah, of course. Also a relief to me, though, possibly just to me, is this. I told you I got twitchy over the cost of using my iPhone overseas. That twitch seemed entirely reasonable to me, but unfortunately, I have another one. I have another twitch. Toward the end of any time I am away from my office at all, for some reason, and who knows why, I get slightly twitchy about whether all my gear will still be in my office when I get home, particularly if it's a time when there's nobody there. I did have the twitch until I installed this. I added security cameras, and actually I did it during the pandemic lockdown, which does seem a bit daft, but had the time to look into things. Anyway, I have one mains-powered camera that's in my office pointing at my Mac, and a couple of battery-powered ones dotted around the house there and outside. And yeah, I did have to remember to charge up those before I left, but they are charged. The one on the mains is ready all the time, and it means now that whenever the internet signal is good enough, and that is key, I can just open an app on my iPhone, check to see that all's fine back at home. Plus, I will actually get alerts when someone comes to the door. I'm using Eufy cameras, and that company has been greatly criticized recently. It's complicated. I'll find a link. Tell you what, I'll find a link and I'll include it in the description. Read what you think, but I've already got them, so I'm sticking with them. More fun, though, in the last nice things to have. Absolutely, totally fun. Think you'll love this. I thought it was going to be more of a nice to have afterwards, but I'm using it throughout. Apple Maps guides. When we started looking around Tokyo, I started either dropping a pin in Apple Maps or slightly rolling again on the ship, tapping on a locations icon that appeared, and then in either case, I would add that result to a guide I created. And over the course of the holiday, I got to build up this map of where we'd been, and I find that so satisfying. I love it. I really am surprised how much I like it, but I do. And actually, for the last thing I want to talk with you about today, I'm also surprised at just how very much this trip has made me like my iPad. I thought I already loved it. Oh, yeah, no, maybe I'm probably, no, I am. I'm being a little unfair here because, for example, I didn't use my aircraft's in-flight entertainment at all. I just saw films playing on other people's screens and I walked by. So maybe when you do use in-flight entertainment, your face on to the screen, maybe it looks better than it seemed to me, the muddy things I saw, but there's no way it actually looks as brilliant as it should. And listening over the teeny wired headphones they give you, I'm not actually convinced they work at all. There you go. But at the very best, they sound bad. Whereas I had noise cancelling AirPods Pro and they were connected. I used those to listen as I watched films and TV on my iPad Pro in utter glorious brilliance. There's Mission Impossible. That's a film I bought years ago in the iTunes store. Before I left the UK, right, I downloaded a bunch of these shows to watch, and actually Mission Impossible wasn't one of them. Yeah, that was actually a real surprise. I opened the iPad, there it was. Apparently I downloaded it long ago. I don't think I've been on a trip. I don't go on many trips. I was just how do you download things through this app? That's probably what I did. But, opened up the lid, there it was, and it was a really long flight. I ended up watching it, and I was very happy. That was good. Intentionally or not, though, you need to download videos, of course, before you leave. And as well as these shows and that film that I could use the built-in TV app for, over the years, I've accrued countless DVDs, including a quite startling number of films and episodes, TV episodes, that I just hadn't ever got around to watching. So I used this. This is a 1 terabyte external SSD. I plugged it into my Office Mac. I dragged over every ripped DVD video that I fancied, chucked it all in my bag and forgot about it and left it up in the luggage. Yeah. Only certain iPads, by the way, can use external drives. So right now, as I speak, the ship's Wi-Fi is incredibly poor. It's going through a very bad patch, satellite Wi-Fi. So I couldn't download more if I wanted. I can't confirm details of things either. So let me leave this to the description below. But what I know for certain is I can tell you for sure the iPad Pro, the latest and slightly older ones like mine, can do this. You can plug a drive in. I know it needs the iPad Pro or whatever to have a USB-C connector. What I'm unsure about right at this moment is whether the latest iPad Air can do it as well. I know older iPads have Lightning connectors, but you can get a Lightning to USB-C connector, but that's starting, adapter upon adapter, that's starting to get a bit complicated. The points of failure are increasing. And anyway, this external drive and an app called a video player called VLC works on my iPad Pro. We have a lot of C days in a row at the moment, so I plan to pop this drive onto my iPad, catch up on anything I like. I should also say, actually just thinking about this, I also popped dozens of screenplays onto that drive, and so I have a lot of reading with me to do too. But just for completeness, let me briefly show you this. While you will never take my iPad out of my hands, I've been reviewing this Note Air 2 e-ink tablet, and so far on this holiday I've read 2 novels on it. I'm about half the way through a third. If you don't already know the Note Air 2, think of it as a Kindle Scribe that works. I was sent it to review for appleinsider.com rather than here on 58 Keys, and I've done that, so I will pop a link to that too. I'll pop a link to the full review article in the description. Lots going in the description, but otherwise that's it for this edition of 58 Keys. Thank you for watching me roll about ever so slightly and keep me company on quite a foggy sea day. It's quite possible I will now go off to explore the ship's gym. It's possible. Take care of yourself. Write more than I have this week at least, and I'll see you soon.